In an interview, while discussing the idea of music and sound in film, legendary sound designer Walter Murch once said that for a musical experience with no image, if you put people in a concert situation, it's fine. But as soon as you have a rectangle of light that orients, it's like suddenly the space is magnetized, and there's a very powerful north, which is the screen, and therefore, what that is, it becomes very ambiguous. Now, today I'm going to be talking about the sheer power of music in cinema, specifically as it relates to the 1996 Danish film Pusher. From the opening of the film, you are met with pounding drums and a short introduction to each character visually, but we only see them as lit from directly above, which adds a sense of ambiguity and a sense of mysteriousness to these characters. Even though we're being introduced to them, we don't truly know who they are. So immediately, the director is already building this sort of sense of paranoia, of anxiety, of stress, of fear with the music, and we haven't even gotten into any of the story in the film. Upon researching this video essay, I came upon an article called "The Symposium Examines the Role of Music in Film" from writer.edu, which essentially talks about music's role in film, and it has a passage in this article where it says, "Music in film serves several functions. Among them, it helps shape emotional responses, creates a rhythm to scenes and segments, and comments on the action." Now, these three things are done so impeccably in Pusher that I'm going to show you a few scenes from the movie that are going to help demonstrate why this movie is such an excellent example of music's role in film and how it progresses the story forward and makes for a more immersive and engaging feature film watching experience. Today, I'm going to be analyzing three of the key moments in the story: act break of Act 1, of Act 2, and then finally the ending scene. So we have the setup. Frank, the drug dealer and main character, has to go to his boss Milo to get some money for a big heroin deal that he was approached with. Frank has already incurred a debt with Milo, and so he's planning to do this drug deal, get the money from the drug deal, come back, and pay his original debt on top of what he already owes Milo for the free drugs that he's giving him in the scene. While on the drug deal, Frank is met with cops who thwart his plan and eventually send him into the spiral of desperation and crime that is the film Pusher. As soon as Frank jumps out of the car as he's trying to flee from the police, Nicholas Winding Refn, the director, cues one of the most exciting pieces of music in the whole soundtrack. Now, just to prove what a powerful element music can be in film, I'm going to play the beginning of the scene without the music, and then I'm going to play it with the music and let it ride out, so you can see how much of a difference that the soundtrack makes in the narrative and in feeling what the characters feel in the moment. Which leads to this sort of synthesis that is, in essence, what movie Pusher is all about. You have a criminal running at top speed away from the cops in full wide angle to this pulsing music that fills you with adrenaline. And this sequence right here is how I knew when I was first watching this movie that it was special. I think it's very difficult to say that this sequence would have been even half as exciting without the music chosen for the scene, which just goes to show one song in one place synced to the visuals can truly do. It creates that sort of ambiguity that Walter Murch was talking about. It helps us set the pacing, it helps us feel the emotions, it helps us understand further what's going on in the narrative just due to music in the story. When we meet Frank at the halfway point, things are getting pretty bad. He still doesn't have the money to pay Milo, so he sends him with his accomplice to go collect some money. But unfortunately, the person to collect from kills himself in front of them. So now, with nobody to collect money from and no options, Frank has to figure something out. What Nicholas Winding Refn did as a director on this was so incredible because of the fact that with this simple music cue, you can see in his mind that Frank's going over the options of what to do next. And you can see things are building, pressure is on. This is one of my favorite sequences because it helps again with setting the pace of the movie. Every time we get one of these heavy punk tracks, we know that something is going down that's going to push the story forward. And this is just another one of those moments where the music cue adds in to the narrative of the story. This is the final scene in the film. We can see Frank's girlfriend, Vic, who he's mistreated the entire film, starts to consider taking the money from him, and then finally does. Now this kind of dance soundtrack, compared to the punk songs we've been hearing at other high points in the story, is a contrast both in narrative structure and in music. So narratively, this moment is different because this is a moment when Frank could have had it all. He could have bought his life back, he could have made amends with Milo, and suddenly all of that goes down the drain. And so this massive change in his paradigm, which has been going on throughout the whole movie, has a different tone now, because if he doesn't have the money, he truly can't come back from it. My theory is that the switch from the passionate punk soundtrack of earlier in the movie to the final scene being a dance song is this. With the punk soundtrack, you could tell that Frank was still in it to win it. There was still a fighting chance for him to get his life back, for him to get on track, to pay Milo, to get a girl, and to go in the right direction. But now, finally, after even the last person has betrayed him, and nobody is on his side, he doesn't feel the passion anymore. He feels the sense of being lost more than anything. This psychedelic dance music droning on in the background is emblematic of his state of mind at that moment. Just keeping on going, just trying to put one foot in front of the other, instead of the impassioned, emboldened moves he's been making throughout the story that have gotten him to the point where he's at. In short, I believe that Pusher is one of the greatest independent films because of its soundtrack. It utilizes youth sounds like punk, dance music, reggae, etc. All these kinds of music that are typically associated with youth to create a very exhilarating and very exciting, dirty underground world full of these criminals and prostitutes, which makes the film far more interesting to watch and makes us feel far more engaged in because the music drives the story so much that you could almost mosh to the movie in a way. It establishes the setting of Copenhagen, and it establishes what sort of claustrophobic, violent world that these people are living in, which is why, in short, I think that the soundtrack is one of the greatest parts of Pusher.